YouTube. Hey, thanks for coming back to the Built on Boxes YouTube channel. My name is James White and I am the trucking lawyer. I wanted to talk to you guys today about carrying a gun in a commercial motor vehicle. There's a lot of misinformation about that. A lot of people were under the impression that you can't do that. This has been a pretty hotly debated topic on several of the Facebook groups that I'm in over the last couple days. And I am an attorney, but on top of being an attorney, I'm a former police officer. I was a police officer for almost a decade. I'm an NRA certified handgun instructor. I'm a nationally certified martial arts self-defense instructor. And so I'm not sure that there's any other subject on earth that I know more about than carrying guns, self-defense law. This is right up my alley. So I wanted to talk to you guys about it. I wanted to try to clear up some misconceptions, and I wanted to make sure that you're clear on what your rights and responsibilities are as it relates to carrying a gun in a commercial motor vehicle. The bulk of this video will be me screen sharing with you to show you the website that probably has the most useful information about this, because you can plug in your individual state, the states that are on your route, and you can find out everything that you need to know in order to make sure that you're protected. And I'll explain that in more detail in the process of showing you the website. Now, first and foremost, there is no federal regulation anywhere in the Department of Transportation's regulation or in the sub-agency of the FMCSA that states you cannot possess a firearm in a commercial motor vehicle. The truth is that firearm possession is largely a states' rights issue. So that means that each state has the ability under the 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution, and I'm not trying to get into the weeds here on constitutional law, but the 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution says that any right not expressly assigned to the federal government in the Constitution is reserved for the states. Gun control is a state-to-state issue. Places like New York, Maryland, California, New Jersey, Illinois, all very strict gun laws. They all have the right to do that. So it's that time. We're going to switch to a screen recording so that I can walk you through where you can get the information that you need. So let's take a look here. So let's say I'm in Tennessee, but the site that we're looking at is the USCCA, which is usconcealedcarry.com. Here's the address up here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to Tennessee. That's where I live. So you can click on Tennessee and it will bring up the information about Tennessee reciprocity, okay? And you can look here and see, okay, there's all this stuff green, so it's going to use like a traffic light system, red, green, and yellow. Green means you're good to go. So if I'm going from Tennessee and I'm traveling from Georgia and I'm going into Florida, whoa, what does that mean? With restrictions. Okay, so that means that you can come down here and you can click on this with restrictions and it'll bring you to the bottom of the page and tell you what Florida's restrictions are. So as long as you're over 21 and you're a resident of Tennessee and you have a permit, you're good to go. So this is how you find out. But the places that everybody's worried about are places like California, places like New York, places like Illinois. Let's say you're a Georgia permit holder and you want to go somewhere. All right, Georgia. So as you can see, with your Georgia permit, you can go into Florida and South Carolina. We'll go down here and check out the restrictions. Same as before. So where are we really worried about? We're really worried about New York, okay? You're going to go up here and you're going to take a sweet load paying $84 a mile, and you're going to go up here right through the tip of Pennsylvania, and you're going to find yourself in New York, and you're scared to death because you've got a gun in the car. So let's click on New York and let's see what it's all about. All right, so New York. Really, this site has everything you possibly could need to know about this, okay? So you can see that New York, it's going to give you stats on how many permits New York has. I can tell you it's almost impossible to get a permit in New York because New York is a may-issue jurisdiction, whereas Tennessee is a shall-issue jurisdiction. It means that the government has no choice but to issue you a permit. With a may-issue state, it means it's completely within their discretion. So you have to prove over here where it says proper cause. In other words, you got to be connected politically in New York to get a permit. But there's still good news. So it goes on to explain, and this is very important, for every single place that you go, you need to understand what the self-defense law is. Now, here's why, and I'll be doing a separate video to explain all this stuff, but in New York, you have a duty to retreat. So if you find yourself in a situation where you have to use physical force or you have to use deadly force can be used if the actor reasonably believes these things. However, the actor may not use deadly force if he or she can retreat with complete personal safety, except that you have no duty to retreat if you're in your dwelling and not the initial aggressor. So that's important, guys. You need to know that information for every single place that you're going to be, because guess what? The whole reason you're carrying a gun is because you don't know where you're going to find yourself in a deadly force situation. The entire idea of being prepared for a deadly force situation sort of imputes that you have no idea when it's coming and you have to be ready for it all the time. So it's important to know what the self-defense law is where you are. New York gun laws at a glance. No, New York does not allow constitutional carry. New York is a may issue state, which we covered. There is a 10-round limit for magazine. Okay, carry locations. This is what you want to know. Can you carry a concealed handgun in a vehicle in New York? Yes, based upon this stands for New York pistol license, I believe. It is legal to transport a legal firearm through New York. Also under federal interstate transportation law, 18 U.S.C. 926A. Well, looky there. Your handy trucking lawyer has already looked this up for you. 18 U.S.C. 926A says, any person who is not otherwise prohibited from transporting, shipping, or receiving a firearm shall be entitled to transport a firearm for any lawful purpose from any place where he or she may lawfully possess and carry such firearm to any other place where he or she may lawfully possess and carry such firearm if, during the transportation, the firearm is unloaded and neither the firearm nor any ammunition being transported is readily accessible or is directly accessible from the passenger compartment. Provided that in the case where a vehicle without a compartment separate from the driver's compartment, the firearm or ammunition shall be contained in a locked container other than the glove compartment or the console. If you're in a car and you have a trunk, that's one thing. You transport it in the trunk. If you're in an SUV and you don't have a trunk that's separate, well, you got to have a locked container. If you're in the cab of a box truck, you want to have a locked container like a safe. I would print this out. Another important thing about New York law. Can you carry it roadside, rest areas? No. This is something to keep in mind. If you don't have a pistol license and you happen to stop at a motel overnight, then you are in violation and subject to arrest. Well, where does that come from? Well, that wasn't part of the federal law. Well, looky here. Click on this right here. License validity. Okay, here we go. Down to B. The firearms covered by a license are being transported by the license in a locked container, and the trip through the city of New York is continuous and uninterrupted. You can go through the city of New York even with a firearm normally prohibited by New York law, so long as your trip through New York is continuous and uninterrupted. So if you're hanging out at the rest area, you're going to get in trouble. If you're sleeping in a motel and you've got a gun, you're going to get in trouble. So this is important to know because you have to plan. You have to plan around this stuff. Make sure you fuel up before you get to New York. Make sure you do an extra vehicle inspection before you enter New York. Make sure your firearm is locked and where it's supposed to be. Set up your hotel if you're going to stay overnight somewhere other than New York. If you want to know more, which you should want to know more, if you're going to carry a gun, you should want to know everything you can know. You can go down through here and say, well, what is the Castle Doctrine? Okay, click on this link. It takes you to a lawyer who sort of explains what the Castle Doctrine is. They're just doing a promotional thing, but this is it.
What is Castle Doctrine?
Okay, you guys can watch that on your own, but the point is, arm yourself with information. If I'm going through New York, you can bet your rear end that I'm going to have this printed out and highlighted, just like that. I'm going to have this printed out and highlighted. I'm going to have everything I need to make sure I protect myself. There's another thing you need to know. Key state laws. Duty to inform. In New York, there is no duty to inform a law enforcement officer. So you can't get in trouble for keeping your business to your business. And let me tell you something. There's something called the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution of the United States that says you have a right not to incriminate yourself. So don't be telling the police officer that you have a gun if you don't have to. You have no duty to inform in New York, and you have a right not to incriminate yourself, and then you don't invite ignorant police officers into your life so that they can misinterpret the law and take you to jail and ruin your business. Now, I don't mean to suggest that all police officers are ignorant. I was a police officer for almost a decade. That was a part of that time that I was ignorant. Lack of education, lack of training, it's just not dealing with a certain thing. I know the root of ignorance is to ignore, but sometimes it's not an intentional ignorance. It's just, you just don't know, okay? Well, sometimes police officers are forced to make split-second decisions, and a lot of times it's on stuff that they don't know. So they choose one way or the other. Well, that choice that might be wrong in the moment might also end up with you going to jail. All I'm trying to say is don't invite a bunch of extra attention on yourself. Keep your mouth closed. All right, guys, that's all I have as far as this goes. Now we'll swing back to the final thoughts to try to wrap this up. But keep this in mind, guys. One, and I'm not trying to call anybody out or, well, I sort of am, but I'm not trying to be rude about it. If you don't know this stuff, and this is not your field of expertise, don't give advice on it. It literally could mean somebody's life if they follow your advice and you're wrong. You just really need to understand this is serious. This is one of the most regulated industries in the country, and then you're adding firearms into it. You don't want on your conscience somebody else's life or death or loss of liberty because it was a 30-second post to you to give your opinion that wasn't based in any sort of fact or experience. It's just what you thought you knew because somebody told you. When it comes to this stuff, if this is not what you do, probably sit on the sidelines for this one. Remember this, in the same way that you would not go from state to state to state without knowing where the gas stations are, where the weigh stations are, where the rest stops are, don't go from state to state to state with a gun in your possession without understanding what the laws are. You print it out, maybe you set a separate folder so that you can, so that way if you find yourself in a situation where a law enforcement officer has found your gun and you have an opportunity to say, you know, Mr. Officer, here, I've printed this out, this is what the law says. If you're in a situation where you have a good rapport with the officer and you're being respectful and they're being respectful and you're talking to them like a person and they're talking to you like a person and it hasn't escalated, a lot of times you can have those conversations and point them to the law. But what's not going to work is if you get in a pissing battle on the side of the interstate with a police officer and all you have at your disposal is to say, I know the law and I know my rights and you're wrong. Well, he thinks he knows the law and he knows your rights and he thinks you're wrong. So until you can show him in black and white because you've done the due diligence of preparing beforehand, you're not in a very good position to advance your narrative. And that's pretty much it, guys. Just be safe. I mean, I say stay armed because, look, even if you get arrested, I'd rather be tried by 12 than carried by 6. That's just the way I look at it. Another thing, knowing the law will not keep you from getting arrested. If somebody is ignorant of the facts or ignorant of the law and you're not, if that person has the power to arrest you, it doesn't mean you're not going to get arrested just because you know more than them. It might give the lawyer who has to defend you, it might give them an opportunity to provide an adequate defense for you because they already know where to go and you've already, you know, explained to the police officer that you're in compliance. It might show how reasonable you are that you've done the due diligence to print out all this stuff and you showed it to the police officer if they have body cam. And there's so many different ways that you can make yourself look good even in the process of being arrested or charged that can help you. So just keep your cool, try not to escalate, follow lawful commands. Don't give these guys an excuse to jack you up or crank you up or throw you on the ground or beat you up. Don't do that, okay? Just listen, do the best you can to reason with them, and if that doesn't work, then you fight it the right way, okay? That really is the recipe. I know it doesn't sound great, you might still get arrested, but that's the recipe. There is no other recipe. The rest of it ends in bad stuff for you. So, that's the truth. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know if the kind of content that I'm putting out is the kind of content that helps you. I'll be doing a lot more stuff. I'm trying to be a resource for you guys. If you have any questions, give me a shout. You know where to get a hold of me. I'll leave my contact information in the description. Thanks a bunch. Have a great day.